Hello, so it's been 14 weeks since we transferred these strawberries into their hydroponic bucket. Right now it's at 69 degrees because I like to keep this tent cold so that they flower. I have a great research paper that I can link down below to the optimal flowering temperatures for June bearing and ever bearing that there have been studies from universities done on, and you can see the different flowering temps and photo periods where you can get the most optimal amount of flowers for your cultivar. So that's where I get a lot of my information from. This is the third time I've watered them. We watered them at the 5-week point, the 9-week point, and the 14-week point. We're using a veg bloom bundle. I'll show you in a second. I'm going to be experimenting soon with compost teas to try and do 100% organic nutrients. The nutrient bundle I use is a blend of organic to inorganic. People hear that and might think synthetic, but there's a lot of macro and micronutrients, and I will list them all on the screen, that go into plants. Like, plants need a lot of different types of nutrients, and there's a lot of different forms and ways you can get those nutrients. That organic means it came from something that was alive. So there's a lot of other ways to get copper, per se, than from a living creature. So they're mined minerals or salts that can be organic, but are okay for the plants to absorb. The plants don't necessarily notice a difference. It's still healthy and okay for you to consume and eat. I wouldn't be consuming anything that would give me cancer or kill me. Hydroponic plants can grow faster because they have direct access to that nutrients and can uptake it more because you control the environment. So someone asked, why do we keep the pH at around 5.5? And that's because certain minerals and certain phosphorus, I believe, is soluble at, oh my god, my voice, sorry. It's soluble at 5.5 acidity and won't be at like 7. So the plants won't be able to uptake it as easy. So that's why we like 5.5. I use reverse osmosis filtered water. I've been experimenting with tap water, but these are all reverse osmosis filtered water at a pH of around 6. I do not use pH up or down because I haven't needed to. I specifically use Veg Bloom Dirty in the bundle, and I noticed that that does not lower the pH when I add it to the water too much, so that I've never had to change reservoirs. I do not change reservoirs in any of my buckets, in any of my plants, in my 3-year-old trees, and 2-year-old plants, which is a little different than the industry will tell you. They'll tell you to change your reservoirs, and even the nutrient bundle I have will tell you to change your reservoirs every 3 to 4 weeks. But I believe plants get better at living the environment that they are already in, and that shocks and kills the roots. And it's a little controversial, but I don't do it in any of my plants because I find it an inconvenience to go and change your water out and waste all that water, since a lot of that you don't even really want to dump back into the natural environment, since it's not 100% organic, and it can be a little bit imbalanced to what's going on out there because you're loading the environment with a bunch of macros and micros, and they can be high in nitrogen. And so I'll show you guys the water level and where we're at. Recently, up to this point, all I've really done is clip off old, dead, dying leaves like these down here that aren't getting great light and that the plant is wasting energy on. And then clipping off any runners because strawberries want to clone themselves through runners. We've kept all the crowns. Crowns I'll show photos of. Strawberries have multiple crowns at the base of them, and they can have up to 8 depending on the cultivar. There's usually a main crown, and you can tear them off and clone them from crowns as well. But I've left all crowns on. You can tear them off and do 1 crown. I believe personally anything below 6 crowns is fine. They can get overcrowded and compete with each other, but I can show pictures of the one I have downstairs. There's multiple crowns on it. I don't temperature control the environment downstairs, but I do have central air, and the house is always at around 79, which is flowering temperature for June bearing and ever bearing. Ever bearing will flower below 86, all the way down to 41, where they both go dormant at 41. They flower more the colder the environment. So some people say, well, why is it flowering when it's 90 degrees outside? If you have an ever bearing with June bearing, if the temperatures drop low enough at night, they can set flowers. So if it was 90 degrees during the day, but it dropped to 82 at night, that's cold enough for ever bearing to set flowers. And it's different per cultivar. Like the study I will reference in the description is done with a couple of cultivars, where there's obviously hundreds of cultivars that are probably native to all different sorts of places on the planet, so the temperatures can vary slightly, but generally they flower more under colder temperatures when we get down to like 54, 60, and if you want, you can do your own independent research on that, since I have some people that question that. That's okay. You can watch and see for yourself what you want to do and do your own research. I'm not necessarily telling anybody to do this. I'm just documenting me doing it and showing you how I do it. And if you want to copy it and do it, this way it makes sense, and I've explained all the aspects from start to finish as much as possible in a bunch of different videos, since I can't possibly cover it all in one video or all topics in one video. So I'm going to run around and test them, see what their EC is at. I don't usually test pH because, again, it's usually always constant. I noticed with Veg Bloom Hard, if you have tap water or tap hard, it lowered the pH to around 4, and I do not like that, so I switched back to Veg Bloom Dirty specifically. I'll show you the bundle. I have a link to all my hydroponic gear down below. I affiliate for it on Amazon, and any purchases directly help out the channel. I also have discount codes for grow lights, grow tents, and grow tent kits. You guys have been very supportive of that, so thank you, I appreciate it. Not full size yet at 14 weeks, and some people may say, oh, my strawberries outside are 14 weeks and in 3 months get to full size and make berries. We've had some berries come off of these that look very nice, and I'll show some photos of them. But you gotta remember, I am controlling the environment in here on purpose, deliberately, over a course of time. So I did not give them full nutrients right away. I started them at about 1 EC, and then when we watered them at the 5-week point, we brought them up to 1.7 EC, and then when they are blooming and flowering at the 9-week point, we brought them up to around 2.5 EC. The reason I'm watering at the 4 to 5 week point every time is because I don't want the Rockwool cube to dry up and the clay at the top to dry up. Strawberries have naturally long growing roots, so it's not like they have trouble reaching the bottom of the bucket. And at the 4 or 5 week point every time, we're only reaching about halfway in the bucket. So I'll show the water level in a different clip of where the water level is at right now, about 4 weeks from the last time we've watered, so that I can give you some perspective. But the larger the plant, the more water they will drink. I get a lot of questions on how much they drink. You'll get a little bit of an eye for it. And if you're ever in a rush, plants drink more than they eat, so you can always add fresh water, and it will just slow the plant's growth down, because it takes a couple seconds to add fresh water, but it can take a couple minutes to mix up some nutrient water and let it settle. Because since I don't change the reservoirs, I like to let the nutrients settle before I water, so that I don't get a lot of soot from the bottom of the bucket, and I just get liquid for the plants in there, and that we control the temperature of the buckets in their food grade plastic in black, so that there's no algae in the buckets and light does not get in, because algae will consume the air and kill the plant. It can be nutrients for the plant, but we don't really want it because it will consume the oxygen, and we already supply our own nutrients. So that's why we're pumping bubbles into the bottom with DWC. You can do cracky. We're experimenting with some cracky in the other room and some cracky setups in windowsills, because some people have been saying in the comments, like in California, it's 40 cents in some places a kilowatt, so you may not want to run LEDs, and you can do this in a windowsill. And I know some places in California, because I've lived in Bakersfield, Visalia, and in LA, and the temperature there should allow for a lot of outdoor hydroponics and not have too much trouble. But I am experimenting with outdoor hydroponics here in the desert of Nevada, so we'll see how that goes. I'm doing a pineapple right now. I have over 40 strawberry plants outside, not in a raised bed. I rent, that's why I grow a lot indoors. And these are the same age as the ones outdoors, so I'll give a photo comparison of that, because I could do raised beds and they might grow just as big and fast as these ones. But the temperature out there, we only get to water for 4 minutes, 3 times a day in the drought. And it's like clay soil that's really tough on them, and it's really hot in the sunlight. So just with all those factors, they're kind of a little stunted out there, and that's why I like to grow them inside, because we also get a lot of birds and bugs outside. I just let the birds and bugs do what they want outside. I thought about getting some fruit baggies, and I got some I'm gonna show for you guys later in a different video to protect outdoor plants from that, because my commenters recommended it and I thought that was a great idea. That's just to show why I do it a little bit indoors. And one thing we're gonna wanna note is, let's say I test it and it says 3.5 EC. We like 2.1 to 2.5 EC for flowering and blooming plants. And I put out a separate short on what EC to give your plants throughout their life cycle. But for young plants, we usually, and just fresh transfers, we like around 1 EC. And as they get bigger and more vegetative, around 1.5 to 2. And then when they flower, to 2.1 to 2.5, or even up to 3. Because some plants will not flower unless their EC is high enough. But let's say I test this and the water says it's 4 EC. The plant drank more than it ate. So when the water went down in the bucket, it just made it more dense. So if it was 2.5 EC and the plant drank more than it ate, there's less water. It ate some food, but not enough for it to like proportionally match the amount of water that was drank. So it will become more dense and show higher on the EC. So we just want to bring that back to 2.5. So adding some fresh water will bring it back to that. So if it says 4 and it's around halfway, we're going to add some fresh water and bring it up. We can retest more near the top, but you'll get a bit of an eye for it as well. Typically, if it's at 4 halfway, you can add fresh water all the way to the top, and it shouldn't dilute it down below 2.5. But you can recheck as it goes up if you want to, and make sure that you don't maybe go below it. But again, if you do go below 2.1 or 2.5, it'll just slow the plant down a little bit, and it'll just drink. And so don't panic if like your EC drops a little too much or you gave it a little too much fresh water, because sometimes I'm in a pinch with my plants and I just give them fresh water and it might lower the EC a little bit, but that's okay. So in our last update videos, we added at the 5-week point 1 bucket of nutrient water per row, and then at the 9-week point 5 buckets of nutrient water, again 1 per row, but then 1 extra one a quarter per row. Alright, so you can see where the water level is at and that the EC is at 3. We like that at around 2.5 for the blooming and flowering plants. So we're going to add some fresh water to dilute that, but not too much because we don't want it to go below 2.5, so we're still going to need to add some nutrient water. So we're going to add some fresh water, remeasure, and then add some nutrient water and remeasure and see if we get back to 2.5. I'm going to go around and test them all off camera, because that's going to take a second to do, and they all should be around the same amount because I've been doing the same exact thing with all of them. Alright, I dim the lights so I don't go blind. I don't really look at them that often and hear that often, but when I'm filming I'm looking at them a lot, so I dim them if it's a little darker. But we're at 2.6, this is before watering, 2.6, 2.6, 2.6, 3, 3, 3.6, 3.6, 3. So we're going to add 50-50 to the ones that are 2.6 because we want to keep them around there. A little more fresh than a little more nutrient water to the 3s and 3.6s, and bring them all to around 2.5 when we're done if we can. Alright, so I just mixed up the nutrient water. I let this settle in the bottom of it. We have about 2 EC and 6.2 pH. The pH is still going down a little bit. I've just been holding this for a while. So that should be pretty perfect. I'm going to go around and add nutrient water first so that I can make sure I want to have enough in there and I don't add too much fresh water. So I'm going to go around and do the 2.6s first and then retest them, add a little bit of fresh water, and then keep going through the rest of them. So I bought some extra tubing, but I used to just use the tubing that came with the bucket so that I can make this long extendo hose and be able to water all the plants with them. And I like that it's above the bottom inch of the bucket so that none of the soot goes down and we only get just the liquid. Alright, so this bucket was 2.6. I'm about to stop right there and retest it, and we're probably going to have to add some fresh water. I'm going to see what it's at. I'm going to go and do the rest of the 2.6s. And same sort of thing, we're going to stop at about that white top line and retest. Alright, so here we have the two ones that were 3 EC. I'm going to add it up to about the red line since they were a little higher than the other ones, and I did white line for the 2.6s, and we'll test there. So I'm going to add up to the red line on the 3s with nutrient water and then retest. Alright, so this is why we retest. Those 2.6s went to 2.5, and that's because I'm adding EC that is 2.1. So it's going to dilute it down a little bit. I'm going to keep adding more nutrient water and continue to test as we go all the way up in the bucket. I just ran out of 1 bucket of nutrient water, and we only got a little bit on these 4 plants. I'm going to make another bucket and finish topping them off with it and go through and testing it, since I want to keep them around that 2.5. So, yeah. Alright, so we're adding more nutrient water. We're going to finish off those 2.6s that ended up testing out to 2.5 and filling them all the way up. And then we're going to go around and retest all the 2.6s again to see what they came out to and see what they're at now. When I fill it up, I go in between these 2 black lines and it won't overflow. If you go above that black line, it will. Alright, well, you couldn't get any more perfect than that. We're at 2.46, and yeah, that looks like the 2.6s are done. We're going to go through and finish the 3s and then the 3.6s on the right here. So with the last bucket, we filled the 3s up to the red line, and we stirred it up. We're going to retest and see what it's at now and what we're going to add now that we've added some nutrient water. Now it's at 2.45. So we're going to keep adding some nutrient water because I don't want it to go below that 2.5. And same sort of thing with this other 3. I filled it up to that red line as well. So I'm going to retest it, but I'm assuming it's around 2.5 as well. So we're going to add nutrient water to these, bring them even higher up, probably above that white line, and we'll retest again. But it looks like we're probably just going to have to add all nutrient water to them as well too. Alright, so we filled the 3s up to above the white line with some nutrient water again. And they were at 2.7. We're going to see what they're at now. 2.6. 2.57. 2.5. Alright, so I'm going to add a little bit of fresh water and a little bit of nutrient water, and that should be pretty perfect. I'm going to test out the other one, but it looks like we're about at 2.5 there at the top. That one's at 2.67, and you can see where it's at. So we're going to add some fresh water there to bring that down. Not much. Probably a little bit of nutrient water too. Use up the last of this bucket. This will be the second bucket of nutrient water, and we pretty much only use nutrient water this far for this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Alright, so this is the 3.6 one. We're going to add some nutrient water though to it because I believe it's going to dilute down as well like the other ones did. But I'm going to stop at the red line to test and see. Alright, so you can see it brought it to 3.2. I'm going to add fresh water now because I don't think I'm going to have enough nutrient water to finish the 4 on the edges, which is 8 total, because I need to get more veg bloom dirty. And yeah, so we're going to add fresh water to this and retest it, and these flowers smell really good. Alright, so we just added our fresh water up to the black clip. We're pretty much done filling this one up. We're just going to get our final little test here to see what we need to do. 2.45, 2.4. So a little bit of nutrient water, a little bit of fresh water, 50-50 just up until that is at that in between those black lines, but 2.4 is pretty good. This one in the back here is at 3.2. This is why I like these rows in here, because you can fill this with plants because the lights touch this area but you'll just have to kind of pull them out, and it's tough to work on the rows if you don't have a row for yourself. So we're gonna add nutrient water to this one as well. Alright, so like I was saying, that one's at 3.2 and it's at about the white line. So I'm gonna fill it up to probably where the word "the" is on this bucket, and then we're gonna test again and probably finish off with fresh water, and that should be it for these 8, and then we're gonna move to that row. Alright, so I filled the nutrient water to where it said the word "the," and then fresh water all the way up from there, and we're at 2.5. So we are done with these 8. Alright, so you can see the water levels in these. We have 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and 3.2. You can see that one drank more water. And so we're going to go through and add nutrient water, nutrient water, nutrient water, nutrient water, and kind of like we did in the middle. Retest as we get about halfway up and see, do we need to keep adding nutrient water or keep adding or add some fresh water. So I'm going to go through and add nutrient water to these, retest them, and then tell you what we're going to do from there. So you can see we added some nutrient water up to the white line. We're still at about 2.4. So we're going to finish adding some nutrient water. Oops, it's going down to 2.3. So we're going to finish adding nutrient water and get to that one in the back. I just made my last bucket of nutrient water, so I might have to wait to do the last row. So we just refilled these with a little bit of nutrient water and a little bit of fresh water. They're down to 2.2, which is fine. Anywhere between 2.1 and 2.5 is perfect. It's just because I'm trying to save a little bit on the nutrient water to see if I can make it to that back row or not. And I still have to do this back one here, but these front 3 are done. They're testing out to around 2.2, which will be good. I added a little bit of fresh water to this one already, so let's just see what it's testing out to. Testing out to 2.9. So I can still add a little bit of fresh water, but it looks like I'm going to have to add some nutrient water to it. And we have about 3/4 of a nutrient bucket left. So probably only going to have enough to do a couple plants on the other side. Alright, so last one in this row. It just tested out to 2.1. We're just going to top it off the rest with nutrient water, and then use the last little bit to finish off that row. If we don't finish, we don't finish. It just won't be in this video. Just the same sort of process with the last 4 is what we're going to do with what we just did. And I get to eat this little funky berry today. Alright, so this one's at 3.2, 3.5, 3.5, 2.8. So we're going to go around and add a bunch of fresh water and retest, and we might have enough. Alright, so we added fresh water to dilute them up to conserve on the little bit of nutrient water that we have left. Now we're at 2.5, 2.1, 2.1, 2.1. So we're going to add a little bit of nutrient water, probably up to the black clip on these, and see how much we have left. Retest, add it, and try and get these as high up to 2.5 as we can with the remaining amount of nutrient water. Alright, so they're all at the black clip at 2.1, even the last one. There's a little bit of nutrient water left. Let's see if we're going to be able to finish them all off. And that'll be the end of the video. Alright, so that's it for this time's watering. That was our 3rd time watering this tent. We're going to harvest this little berry today. We've already gotten some off of them. We're leaving them off with about 2.1 EC, 2.5 in the middle, and 2.1 on the side. So we'll see you next time we water. If you want, we have our hydroponic plants playlist where there's more of these, or what YouTube thinks is best for you if this video is on YouTube. You can subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.